I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have a cell phone, please silence it. This meeting is advertised in Lancaster paper for the first part of the meeting, which is Alerta area designation. I'll turn the meeting over to Tom.
This is a hearing that we're required to hold under the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act, LRTA. And under that act, we're required to hold a hearing to fix boundaries before the supervisors act on any ordinance. So this is the hearing to establish the boundaries. And we have advertised this in the Lancaster newspapers, and the proposal is to establish the deteriorated areas applying to industrial properties, commercial property, and other business properties in the general commercial, planned commercial, heavy industrial, and light industrial zoning districts. And this applies to primarily new construction, but the act defines improvement as repair, construction, or reconstruction, including alterations or additions. So it's a little more than just new construction. But essentially, a commercial or industrial or business property, the land itself would not become exempt, and the existing facilities would not become exempt. It would be if one of the property owners wants to have new construction, have an addition, have an alteration, new building, that type of thing. And we did this for UGI, so this is more or less an enlargement of that concept. I know that Scott has been in touch with the school district and the county, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
On this. And I understand the school district and county are going to follow suit in the near future. Is that correct?
That's correct, and for the record, there is a representative of the school district in audience.
Okay. I don't know if you'd like to say anything regarding this matter?
Yes, I'm also the superintendent for Cocalico School District, so we have had conversations with the township and have been sharing all of that information with the school board as it has progressed. Jeff Mitchell was at one of our meetings to present the information and field any questions, so they're fully aware of what is happening and would understand that our next steps occur after your steps first are taken. So we are fully aware of what's happening here and are ready to follow suit after these steps are taking place with the township.
So it's fair to say the school district's in total alignment with East Cocalico?
Yes, we are in support.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments in regard to this hearing?
Yes, Mr. Russell, I guess we haven't previously heard anything about what the county commissioner's response was to what's going on. Do you have an update on that?
Like I said, the county's been made aware of it. That's the typical county position. They'd like to see the township and the school district advance the project.
So there's no hesitation of what is being presented?
None that I'm aware of at this point, but they are aware of the project.
Thank you.
Is there a time frame for, accomplishing this LRTA transformation?
Well, the plan is that we have a resolution later on the agenda, which I think you may have a copy of in your packet. And number one, we have to adopt a resolution establishing the boundaries. Then we have to advertise an ordinance. Then you adopt the ordinance. And be very blunt about it, the plan is that we'll hopefully the board will authorize us to advertise the ordinance, and the ordinance would be adopted at your next meeting.
And I'll comment on the time schedule there. The original plan was we really wanted to get it accomplished. It was very aggressive. A lot of people did a lot of work with it. but the plan was to try to get this all accomplished prior to the end of this year. So we're actually ahead of schedule by a couple of months on where we are, to start implementation in 2019, January of 2019.
So schedule-wise, we were talking about next meeting, which would be October 4th, so that would be October 18th, would be when the township takes up the ordinance. And then the school board has a meeting in early November, that would be when they would take that up. And then it would go before the county commissioners in late November.
Thank you.
I usually set the ordinance up to become effective 5 days after its enactment. Do you want me to have it effective January 1, 2019? Just ask.
No, I think we should have it still, let me rephrase that, so you know, in terms of implementing and going forward with any new alert proposals, my plan was always to do it no later than January of 2019. So if we're doing it after, let's keep that standard.
Okay.
And also, the county's going to want to see that we've actually
We've
enacted
enacted
it.
it. Absolutely.
And I mean, that's what, be very blunt about it, we knew what UGI was going to do. I don't, maybe someone knows what the industrial business properties are going to do, so we may not have anything come in between now and then also.
Right.
No problem.
Anyone else?
Chair, if you want to maybe close the hearing, and then I do got a request that, just because of some numbering, we have our resolutions out of number, out of order sequence. So it asks us making a change to the agenda, and actually that we would take action on resolution 2018-15 upon closing this hearing.
Okay. So I need a motion to do it.
Or use
Motion proceed.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing closed, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, if I can read the resolution for the record, resolution 2018-15 of the Board of Supervisors of East Cocalico Township, Lancaster County, whereas East Cocalico Township is a local taxing authority authorized by the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act of December 1st, 1977, and whereas the Board of Supervisors of the Township held a public hearing on October 4th, 2008, for the purpose of establishing boundaries of a deteriorated area within the township potentially eligible for temporary tax exemption from real estate taxes or increases in assessment due to certain improvements or new construction of such property owner act, and whereas the boundaries of the deteriorated area are determined by the township following the public hearing and involve real property identified as all industrial properties, commercial, and other business properties within the general commercial, planned commercial, light industrial, and heavy industrial zoning districts of the township as set forth in the zoning map, which is made attachment of Exhibit A. And whereas the Board of Supervisors desires to encourage new commercial and business development and improvement to the deteriorated areas as above identified through the use of temporary township tax exemptions. That is your resolution. I'm just asking for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Want a second?
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
And thank you to the school district. They've been very good to work with through this whole process.
Judy.
I think Lisa should have one copy over there to sign.
That one.
For the township, I'd like to take that one with me.
I have a folder in the tail.
There's a folder here.
The folder has the,
Oh, we have all sorts of.
yeah, that should be the one.
Excuse us a minute.
Tom, you're taking the one original, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll continue on the agenda. Emergency Service Representative semi-annual meeting with the supervisors. Thank you very much for this meeting. We'll start out with the Greenstown Fire Company's Cocalico. Any comments or questions or?
Yeah, I guess we'll say the same things we always say, and I think they're getting more critical each year. And that's the fact that the emergency services have all become a business. Volunteers are extremely short. We need as much help. As a matter of fact, I would say they've become to the point of critical. Something's going to have to be done in the near years to come in the future. Also, financially, it's become a burden, and that we all know that the small fundraisers that we're able to do on our own aren't going to fund, aren't going to finance well-equipped, efficient emergency services. So that being said, we always can use your help wherever we can get it. I think we had talked as a group. It costs right now about, I'm going to say $9,000 with an air pack, a full set of gear, $9,000 per firefighter. Probably within the township, you might have 40 active firefighters. Those costs are just unbearable even for our relief association. So we thought maybe that the supervisors or the township would consider writing a grant for us and pay for that grant, hopefully, that at least for the air pack side of it. The NFPA rules and regulations are requiring that we change out gear, a lot of other things every 10 years. That becomes a huge expense. The three departments together at this point are probably operating with a budget. If we put all three together, we're probably operating with a budget of a little over $1 million. And that's with volunteers, and that's with the money that your volunteers within your community are raising basically to give back to you in that service. I think the volunteers in today's world are not quite the same as the volunteers were probably when my dad started. There's definitely still a dedication level there. However, society in itself, two parents are now working to try to make a household go. They can't give as much time. They're giving everything they can, but the same amount of volunteers today doesn't go near as far as it did 30 years ago. Our EMS side, which Rick probably will talk to you a little bit about later, is we're already operating with several paid personnel because we can't get volunteers in the medical field. So I would request from Reamstown's standpoint, if East Cocalico could at least put that on their webpage maybe, that we're so critical for volunteers that anybody that we could get in would be greatly appreciated. And, you know, if they happen to call to the township, or we can give you information where they can contact us directly.
That'd be good.
But if we don't look at ways of getting volunteers into the service relatively quickly, I think the alternatives to that are going to be really dismal. You know, an emergency service budget for fire and EMS is going to make the police department's budget look really sweet. We would need at least double what the police department needs to operate annually to provide the service that the same level of service that they're providing now within East Cocalico Township.
Can you speak a little bit to, just to give all of us an idea of the scope of the time required just on an initial volunteer to be properly trained? It's not only the cost of the equipment, it's the time involved, right?
Yeah, their training, I'm going to say on average, a volunteer firefighter probably trains a minimum of 500 hours a year. I would say there's a substantial amount of requirements now by the state. You know, you're supposed to become a certified firefighter one. That's probably getting really close to 200 hours just to accomplish that. But then all your specialty classes like Pump 1, Pump 2, aerial operations, hazmat operations, which is a Pro Board certified national. Roughly they're getting probably 500, and then they got to keep retraining on those same items also. Then there's specialty fields. You know, when I first started I can't tell you how long ago that was, but we were probably running 75 to 80 calls a year. To date this year, Reamstown's run 170, probably run average of probably 220 to 230 till the year is out. And you know, each one of those calls probably averages an hour, but you get some that are you're gonna be out 10 hours, you get some you're gonna be out half an hour. So it's substantial. I would say any firefighter out there today is probably giving 1,000 hours a year to their community.
Grant, right, do you have a person to write it?
I think Scott,
Yeah, we do.
Okay, well,
That was,
I think we-
that was the person I was talking to you about, so
I think we discussed that already.
I would like to add that formally in the 2019 budget, but I would also like to reach out to that person
Yes.
now for some immediate assistance.
I think it'd be.
you know, and that, on that, in the website, or maybe you could just put that as volunteers in general, an emphasis on EMS, but volunteers to all 3 stations. It doesn't have to just involve Reamstown.
Thank you.
Yep,
Chad Weaver, Stevens.
Did well.
you're up.
I hear it. Scott did well presenting that, so we'll let that go. The only thing I would say is, let you know where we're heading here for the rest of this year. At Stevens, we have activated our truck committee. We're looking to replace our 1986 brig truck squad. We're in the very early stages there. There's a lot of options to look at what we're gonna do. So we'll probably see something here in the next year with that. And then the other thing is we're in the process of working through with the township right now with Scott Russell and Tony and them, is putting an official 80 by 80 helipad in on our property to land a helicopter for the hospital. And that is going to be a huge thing for us. It alleviates a lot of safety concerns and things that happen there. We right now currently land that thing between 50 and 60 times a year. And I think this year they're probably getting close to that already. So they're starting to utilize that a lot more. So we're in the process of working through that right now.
Thank you very much. Tony?
Also, on Smoketown, I'm sure the other companies, there's other volunteers who are also looking for help for fundraisers, because it's not, for us, and I know these guys are all the same, is the same guys that are out there fighting the fires are the ones cooking the chicken and making the same, doing help in the fundraiser, so any type of help we could get would be fantastic. For us at Smoketown, we just put in, September 15th, we had a housing and dedication of our new pumper tanker, so that's in service now. And everything else there is going pretty good, and do thank the township for what they do for us now.
Thank you. Rick Carpenter, EMS.
Yes, I can only echo some of what Scott and Chad and Donnie already said. As far as volunteers, there's a great need in EMS for more volunteers. We have paid staff that generally keeps the ambulance in service. I brought along some numbers since the last time that I was here, which was in April, when you handed out the donations. I would like to in part explain to you how those donations are used, or at least give you an idea of what we do, what the ambulance does for the township. So in the last 6 months, paid staff for the ambulance service, paid staff was in service 8,736 hours. That is 2 providers, though. So that number is by 2 providers. During that same period, less than 10% of those hours were provided by volunteers. Volunteers did donate in those 6 months 780 hours of service. So that kind of gives you the need for the volunteers. Also during that period, the ambulance responded to a total of 265 calls within East Cocalico Township. That is, within that 6-month period, about 53% of our call volume is within the township.
You also service Denver.
We service portions of Denver, small part of West Cocalico, and Adamstown Borough.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions of our?
I think I was going to give an EMS update, but there is a WellSpan meeting early in November that has invited all of the EMS departments that they support, and give some more information. I know WellSpan themselves has been kind of struggling with how they provide EMS support, and they're getting everybody together to start talking about that. So there's going to be more coming out. I'm not sure yet what is going to come out of that meeting. We will have representatives there, including Greenstown EMS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't say that enough.
You can't say it enough, no. Definitely, thank you very much. We appreciate it immensely, so. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fry, if I may, it's not often we get three chiefs, I guess, in the same room. 6 months ago, I posed a question whether your thoughts were that a merger was in the works at some point. I guess you all agreed that it would be, but with different time frames. Now, hearing Scott talk tonight, it seems like there's a little more urgency in his voice than what I've heard in the past. What are your thoughts on that subject? I'm just curious as a bystander.
You'll get 3 different answers on that, just like you did last time. Honestly, I think Reamstown runs a much bigger portion of the township and has a lot more responsibility on them, and they need more help than Donnie or I do. We run a smaller portion of that. Not that we're in better shape than Scott, but just we don't have the stress put on us as hard as Reamstown does on the EMS side or the fire side. So for us, we're not looking as quick to do that. We have a lot of older people, so as Reamstown does, that put a lot of heart and soul into their fire companies, and they're not ready to give up on that yet or let it go. Does that sound, is that right, Scott? Is that worded properly?
Yeah, you're right.
There's a lot of ownership in that yet with the older generations that are still here that the younger doesn't. The younger generation's a little more giving on that, the olders are not. And I think that is our biggest stumbling block at this point in time. I think that is probably the biggest stumbling block. Correct?
No, I would say so.
Do you see it as plausible to wait till that time frame plays out with the older members?
I think that's kind of where we're at with that right now, I believe.
Yeah, I think time's gonna tell itself. A merger in this township is 100% inevitable. It's coming. So it matters how long we keep our guards up and we say, no, we can't do this, we can't give up this, and we can't give up that. We're providing service for the community. So we shouldn't be looking at our own individual gains or losses when we go into a merger. We should be looking at how much better and how much more efficient we can provide our service to the township. And if we can't get together on that, I think sooner or later the township needs to say, let's do it. We have to do it. I think tons of money gets wasted doing what we're doing now. I don't have a dead set opinion of when it should happen, but it needs to happen shortly. And that's not for my benefit. I think if it's a forced merger later down the road, there's going to be a lot more unhappy people than there are if we could sit down at the table now and fight it out and get it over with and move forward. It's happening all over the nation. So it's inevitable. To provide the service efficiently and effectively, it's going to have to happen.
Yeah, it's the evolution of the departments nationwide.
And nobody, volunteers, like you said, are giving 1,000 hours. Nobody wants to step on their toes. Nobody wants to make any one of those mad because you need everyone you have. So it's a really delicate situation how you get from point A to point B when you're dealing with all volunteers and no paid staff. It makes it really, really tough to negotiate.
Scott, may I ask you, you said you'd save a ton of money. Specifically, how would that be seen? Because I know your liquid fuel money that comes in, it's one check for the whole township. It doesn't go to individual.
Our liquid fuel taxes, that's each department.
Right. But do you
That's not
parcel
one
it out
lump
then? Do you parcel it out?
Well, no, we file for our own liquid fuel tax.
I thought you got one check.
Well, we don't get fuel through them.
No.
Well, the taxes go for other things, I know too, but that money. But how would you, my question is, how would you save a ton of money with a merger? Because I hear everyone saying there's no volunteers. So the merger isn't necessarily going to bring volunteers out of the wall. How would you save money?
Well, you're going to strategically place equipment. You're going to be able to probably reduce the amount of equipment you have running, all the equipment in the township on each call, which would mean even if you keep 3 stations open, each station doesn't necessarily need all the same pieces of equipment. The average fire truck, Donnie's tanker pumper he just bought was what, $614,000. That piece may be the only piece he needs. And he would be supplemented by the rest of the township. Down the road somewhere, you're gonna look at facilities. You're gonna look at strategically placing.
Yeah, I can understand that, yes.
Now, once you start to do that, then you start to save on insurances, you start to save on electric bills, on gas bills, on water and sewer bills.
That makes sense.
So there's all kinds of
You
ways.
usually always respond with an assist. It's rare you only have one little company out at a time. You're usually
Well,
getting a couple.
in today's world, they do that a lot.
Yes.
I think in this area, we're still a little less, I don't know what you want to call it.
Laid back.
We are a little more laid back, but if you get toward the cities, it's a well-known fact that today's fires are all synthetic fires. So 30 years ago, when you went into a house, the couch was probably made out of wood, and it was probably made out of cotton, and it was a textile product. So when we entered that house, when we got there, we had 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe before we really had to worry of what that structure stability is going to be. Today, by the time we're dispatched and we pull up, the building is extremely close to flashover if it's a working fire, which means we have no time. If we're going in that building 3 to 6 minutes and we've got to be out, or it'll flash and you're going to lose people.
Well, I can also see with the industry in the area and the increase in industry and the increase in residents, services are only going to be stressed more and more.
Right, and there'll be more buying power when you have it all together. So you go to buy. Now, we do a lot of that right now. So the 3, and this is my own opinion, so I'm not talking for the other 2, but we now work together pretty well, trying to do large volume purchases and things like that. So we are saving what we can save. And, you're right, we all have some people that are vested that don't like the idea of a merger just yet. It was extremely close the last time, though. Extremely close.
Thank you.
Any comments, Donnie?
Well, no, it's Smoketown's a little different because we don't have the older crew that's rooted in. Our company wants, when we, some of our new people, that's what they want, that's what they want to strive for, because they know what's best for the community. But I think it's also one of those things you have to watch, because if I think we all know, if we do merge, we're going to lose some people. There's no fact, and we're already struggling for people. And if you do the merger, and if us at Smoketown, if we do a merger and we lose 4 or 5 people, that hurts us tremendously. So you have to weigh the good with the bad right now. And I mean, it's going to happen down the road. You can see it, and I think it's just the way the things go, and as people keep coming into the area, businesses, we keep getting. I mean, when I first joined Smoketown, we used to go 2-3 months without a fire call, and now we're going to be over 100 for the 2nd year in a row. That's at Smoketown, which up till last year we never ran more than like 70, and now we're keep going up and up and up.
Does a merger mean one location for all the facilities coming at one location or not?
Not necessarily. We did not get far enough in our talks with that to get to that point. Eventually, it probably will become to that. That could be 10 years down the road, whatever, after the fact. But initially, it would be the 3 stations starting out, and then whatever that new committee and body makes and decides would be what would happen. But we didn't get in too deep into that discussion yet because it didn't get far enough down the talking lines for that.
Well, no, I think the merger originally, when we talked, was to consolidate the administrative side and the financial side, and then we would have run with one set of line officers within the township. So there would have been one township chief, one deputy chief, 3 assistant chiefs, one at each station that would have ran each one of those stations, and then several junior ranking officers. And that would have reduced personnel, because now each one of us has that within our own department. So you would have took that and condensed that down. Now, that can cause a ton of issues also, because somebody that's a chief now isn't gonna be the chief then. You know, when you got 3 chiefs and only one is gonna be a chief, when you head down the road, that can be a stumbling block. So there's a ton of issues when you're dealing with volunteers that make it really hard to get them all sitting down and get them together.
But isn't part of the other problem the fact that none of you have just the way it is, like Donnie just bought that pumper tanker, but each piece of equipment is different, and it's different how to operate it. I mean, you gotta have people trained to operate each one of those things. You can't take Charlie and put him on, I don't think so, put him on your truck and then take him off your truck, put him on yours and put him on yours and expect him what to do.
Yeah, I would say you could.
It's getting to that point,
Is it?
especially with the pumping
Did
classes
used
we've
to
been
be.
on, we've been cross-training on each other's trucks. Especially trucks like the ladder truck or something, that'd be a little different. But the everyday pumpers and the tankers and stuff like that, it's pretty close, we can switch them out.
There's some electronic things that come on the new pieces that we didn't want, that we wanted some of the old school features, just because that's what our older drivers wanted. And we actually, things that were thrown in before, we actually had to pay a little extra for, just so, and it's, I mean, I did that the other week, I was pumping one, the pumper tanker, and I went to the tanker, and I was like, it was similar, but one still had the old dials and everything else, and the other one's all electronic, so it's.
You trained together the whole 3 years.
Yeah, we just did a couple of classes, pump 1, pump 2. Roll water movement, yeah, we have a township training committee that sets up some classes and we just run.
As you're thinking about that, does it help at all, or have you thought about if each of the departments specialized in a specific field or a specific area? Heavy rescue?
No, not at this point.
Heavy rescue for one, aviation for the other? Just a thought.
Not without a merged department, you're never gonna get that to happen. That's gonna be impossible. We still all 3 have our first 2 area, which means we all have to be able to fight fire, every one of us. So, we have an aerial in Reamstown, so we specialize, and that does aerial service everywhere. These guys both have tankers, which is specialized, but they still aren't gonna be able to eliminate their first 2 pieces into those areas, as long as that's their first 2 response area. They have to have an engine to fight that fire.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for attending our meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Past meeting minutes approval for our meeting Thursday, September 20th. Any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I make a motion that this be accepted as presented.
Go to second.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Police Department, Chief.
Thank you. I will do my full report at the next meeting. Moving forward on a number of things. One of the things to talk about very quickly tonight is the department is going to participate in a fundraising program that's going across the county, and it has been for many years. This will be our first year doing it. The officers have wanted to do it in the past, but for whatever reason, it was not done, but we're going to do it this year. And it's a program called Beards for Brothers, and it's in November, and the officers can pay $25, it goes to the fundraiser, we waive the shaving requirements for the department and for the standard operating procedure, and officers will have to grow a beard for the month of November. If they choose to shave before the end of November, they have to pay an additional $25. I think last year the county, all the agencies that did it, they made about $30,000. And what they do is they pick out a first responder and they give a large portion of the money to that person who's going through a tough time. And then they have another charity that they donate some of the money to. So I'll bring it up again on the 18th, but in November, if you see, and this it could get kind of interesting, so we'll see, you know, what everybody looks like. But we'll keep it presentable, but that's going to be going on in November, so kind of looking forward to that.
Are you gonna have weekly photos on your Facebook
I think we
page
might
so
try
can
to,
see the
yeah.
progression?
Instagram, Twitter maybe, and that kind of stuff, so we'll see. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, if I may, how may a female officer participate in this program?
I think that's why they call Beards for Brothers.
Zoning Officer Tony.
Yes, as usual, I'll present my full report at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. The roadmaster, he's on vacation, so he'll give his report at our next meeting. Continue with the list of bills.
Okay, you have a total general fund of $85,970.71 and a total state fund of $95,495.48. Questions?
Mr. Fry,
Yes, sir.
more pool expenses.
Yes.
Something go bad there, create a $5,900 bill.
Yeah, the Water Authority came and checked the meter and it wasn't up to their snuff. Plus, we didn't have a backflow check valves, so we had to put a new meter in and put the double backflow check valve in. So that's where that bill's there. So now we're up to standard for the Water Authority.
So are we incorrectly being billed for water, or?
I think we were underbilled. If you're underbilled, and they didn't like it. I liked it, I said, honestly, what we need is a new meter.
But that comes at the property owner's expense then?
Yes, it is, like anybody else.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll make a motion the bill be paid as presented.
I'll second saying.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Land planning. Paul Land subdivision. And,
My name is Chris Feige with Wiser Engineering here tonight to talk about the Paul Land subdivision. I'll probably just defer to Brent, and you can go from there.
thank you.
Yeah, the brief background, Paul Land is a minor subdivision plan. It's a one-lot subdivision along Napierville Road. The applicant is proposing to subdivide approximately a 2-acre lot from an existing 13.7-acre property. All the properties involved are zoned ag, and the current structures are serviced by on-lot well and on-lot sewer system. The property was the subject of a prior subdivision decades ago, at which time various parcels were to be combined in common to form the overall parcel. One of the items within the review that needs to be addressed is kind of more formalizing that into a singular deed, at which time this plan is recorded, and also creating the new lot from that. So the plan was submitted to the county. The county reviewed it, provided draft comments. They had actually a quorum issue, so the formal comments will be forthcoming. The applicant has assembled a sewage facilities planning module, which is necessary when you have a subdivision involving on-lot sewers. So that packet's before you. It includes county comments on the module, county component 4B, I believe, outlining that it's consistent with county planning and other associated planning documents, zoning requirements. Township Planning Commission also completed component 4A. So really we've had technical meeting. We had a technical meeting on site with Tony, myself, Chris, and the applicant to review items as identified in my prior review letter dated September 21st. The review letter, we discussed those items prior to the review letter being issued, and then subsequently I put them in writing and clarified them in the letter. The primary issue discussed on site, there's maybe two or three. One is involving roadway frontage improvements, and waiver modifications related to typical widening, right-of-way widening and so forth identified within the subdivision land development ordinance. Through discussions with Scott and the applicant, it was suggested that a waiver modification be utilized. There's no current plans to widen or improve other portions of the existing roadway in that area. Therefore, no real need for additional right-of-way or limited improvements along the frontage. We did identify as a result of some site visits by Tony and then the subsequent one with the applicant, one or two drainage areas along the existing roadway where the roadside swale either had a poor definition or had silted in certain areas, resulting in some ponding, limited ponding and puddling along there. So through discussions with the applicant, it was suggested to pursue a waiver modification of widening and additional right-of-way dedication, and in combination with that, it would be considered to be conditioned upon improving those roadside swales in those areas to provide more favorable drainage conditions. So, other items discussed, there is an existing pond on the property today, and it will be located out on the residual properties, not on the proposed lot. It is kind of upslope and directly behind the area proposed for development. So we did have discussions about the status of the pond, any potential outlet structures or pipes associated with it, and they were going to go back and do some additional research relative to that because none were shown on the plan at this time. I think the applicant has indicated he thinks there is a.
Correct, and what we had agreed to do is, we'll try to do our best to find an outlet structure and do the history, but worst scenario would be, as the development progresses, this lot and the house location sits to the east of the basin, that we most likely will find that outlet structure when we're digging the basement of that house. And then at that time, we will divert it properly around and outlet it properly at that time. If we can't find it early on, but we probably will find it during the construction side. And that's how we are going to address that scenario. As well as provide, though, an emergency spillway in the beginning so that any water will be diverted around the basin. Good possible. And Mr. Landis, as he's been living there for 50 years, and the basin has never overflowed. But we do want to be safe as we move forward. Now we're placing a house there. And it actually is going to be his house. He's actually sold the residue property, the remaining 11 acres. He's selling that off, and he's actually going to move and build a new home on this 2-acre property and live there.
And one of the comments is addressing that, and that will require some input from Tom Goodman as far as additional notation to be placed on the plan about this potential facility related to the pond, and essentially either establishing an easement or clarifying rights relative to ownership and maintenance, so that while the intent is that Mr. Landis, very knowledgeable of the property, moves to the new lot, every scenario has to be anticipated that it could be a totally different party, and all responsibilities associated with long-term maintenance of critical infrastructure, especially associated with the pond, have to be understood by all. So I think those were the key items. Dale High has signed off, Dale High SEO has signed off on the module packet that's before you. Once you adopt that, it goes on to DEP for formal review. And that would be a condition associated with the plan approval, but that DEP approval is necessary first. So,
as Brett indicated, Mr. Landis and I have met with your professionals, and very good corporate meeting out there. Nothing unusual that we can't come to an agreement and make happen. Your solicitor has already provided his comments. We will address those items too. So tonight, what we'd be looking for is an action on the planning module, actually action on the waivers, action on the plan as conditional final, and conditioned upon the reviews, of course, and as well as action on the planning module for DEP.
There's any other questions? I'll go on to the suggested motion. The first would be a motion to approve the sewage facilities planning module for the Paul Landis minor subdivision plan by adopting the sewage facilities planning module resolution for plan revision, resolution number 2018-16, and authorize the Secretary of the Board of Supervisors to sign and seal all appropriate documents for submission to DEP.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second same.
Any comments or questions? Yes?
Yeah, someone who does wetland delineation, I have seen lots and lots of ponds with the berms breached, where the water comes out of somewhere other than the outlet for emergency spillway. If that were to happen in this case, is there some sort of swale or stormwater thing that would take care of it, or is it possible the pond will end up in the homeowner's basement?
The proposal at this time is we will have a diversion swale at the back of the home for any scenario like that, diverting it around the property.
Okay, just checking.
Along those same lines too, as part of the reason for meeting on site and discussing it is better understanding some of the aspects of the pond. Is it a pond with 15 foot of water? Is it a pond with 2 foot of water? And through the information there, it's gathered, it's
We would call it a shallow pond. It has silted in over the years.
It's 2 to 5 feet deep, I
Correct.
think. It was identified as 5 maximum to minimum.
Other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next motion would be to conditionally approve the waiver modification of section 194.13C8, 194.25C1, 194.25J1, 194.25K, and 194.33F as it relates to the widening and improvement of the existing public roadway along the frontage of the subject property, condition upon the applicant regrading and reestablishing effective roadside swales to direct flow to the existing drainage facilities to the satisfaction of the township and township engineer.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And then the last motion would be to conditionally approve the Paul Landis minor subdivision plan conditioned upon the applicant addressing all items as outlined in the Becker Engineering Review Letter dated September 21st, 2018, to the satisfaction of the township, township engineer, township zoning officer, and township solicitor.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Okay, I'll second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank
We'll,
you.
We'll get this project moving. I just wanted to get started, so.
Curious where you would think that culvert, that pipe comes from? Culvert there.
From the pond,
Yeah.
they're all thinking it actually crosses under the road all the way down to the stream. That's what they're thinking.
They think it goes that far.
All that goes that far, yes.
Mr. Chair, while we got Brent still here,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
want to make you aware of two things that occurred recently. They're both kind of good news stories. The first one, today Tony and Brent met with members first and with the Comfort Inn. And Brent's been doing reviews for the Members First project, and it's going well. But it became apparent that the owner, which is the Comfort Inn, was selling the tract of land to Members First. There wasn't coordination going on between Members First and the Comfort Inn. And some of the things that Members First was proposing was actually going to potentially impact Comfort Inn in ways that they might not have realized as the people that were selling the property. So Brent had flagged it, and there were some conversations that went back and forth with the Members First developer, who was a vice VP that is representing Members First, and with the owner of Comfort Inn. They had that meeting today. Had they not met, there was a showstopper that actually developed concerning the Comfort Inn sign. And I had some emails back and forth with the developer from Members First. Had they not met, there's an issue with how the sign is between Members First and Comfort Inn for the existing sign, and that right now, there's a conflict there, and if it had not gotten brought up now and gotten brought up much later in the process, it would have been a problem. So right now, they have the opportunity to kind of resolve that issue between both corporate bodies, because this is corporate against corporate. So Member First has their standards, Comfort Inn has their standards, and right now there's a conflict. And so it has nothing to do with the township. But by having this meeting and flag out some of those other issues, that one came to the surface. And it's caught early in the process that can probably be satisfactorily resolved instead of having a big problem later. But according to members first, that sign issue uncaught would probably be a deal breaker with the project. So I just wanted to make that aware, because that was kind of proactive and had nothing to do with the way we would normally do business, but it was just seeing a problem and then getting the owner and the developer together and making them both aware of what the issues were. And I kind of didn't talk about
Yeah, if I could add to that. Brent and I were there. The meeting was very well attended and also very cordial. In fact, we got compliments that the meeting even took place because everybody was in the same room, same time, getting these issues out on the table. And the one big issue was, again, once that property is sold to members first, that Comfort Inn sign is now an advertisement off-site. That's the sticking point. Our ordinance does not allow for off-site advertising. So the option, and I've discussed this with our solicitor already, I should have an application for zoning hearing board for the month of November for this sign to get approvals on that sign. But again, it was positive. Everybody's in agreement. The items were easily dealt with today because there were a bunch of little ones. But that was a deal breaker. Comfort Inn said that sign cannot stay there. They probably wouldn't sell property. And members first certainly wants to be there. And everybody's in agreement. And so there'll be a zoning hearing board. We'll be confident that it turns out the way it needs to turn out, and they'll be working grandchildren. So it went very well.
So let me ask you this, we've talked in the past, is this one of those catalysts for that executive list of the projects that are going on where there's a supervisor assigned to every project, and if need be, the supervisor gets involved with the owner, the developer, wherever you need to help facilitate these things along?
It could be, as Scott said, and Brent witnessed today, we handled it pretty well.
Yes, absolutely.
In a tough time, we may need some additional input.
We are looking, right now, we just got done meeting with a group of what's called Logic. It's run by Carroll Engineering. It's a permit tracking program, like I talked to you about. One of the things we wanted to do. And that is actually one of the goals. We're actually going to see a demonstration next week on how it can kind of organize this stuff, and that is actually the criteria we're looking at. So we are exploring that. All projects going forward, we are assigning a supervisor. This is one of our legacy projects at this point. But that is something we're doing. But it is also one where the owner agent members first has been fully involved with the project from day one. And Tony in particular reached out to Comfort Inn to kind of flag he knew the maintenance manager there to flag the issues once Brent brought them up. It didn't seem like he saw a potential conflict coming between the two entities.
No, and thank you for being that proactive and getting involved, because that's exactly what we need to do here, facilitating these projects.
In one of our response emails, we advised it would be in both parties' best interest to get to the table and discuss this face to face, because I believe Brent was in the middle of a second review on the Members First project, and the Comfort Inn people didn't even have a current plan set to look at, which made us both scratch our heads. And but anyway, it turned out real well today. It went very smoothly, and we're anticipating a good output.
Good.
The other thing I want to give on Becker's side, they have a young engineer, Casey Kirchner, who has been on most of the inspection for both Wabash Landing and Heatherwoods right now. About 2 weeks ago, he came to me and he said, there's a lot of crushed rock that's occurring on Wabash. If you look at it, there's a lot of blasting going on right now. That is not our normal residential development where we're building on really bad soils. And so for that reason, we're not building on bad soils. And the whole idea of doing base drain is to drain the water in the bad soils. He flagged that there's a whole stretches of areas along Wabash that it's all stone, bedrock, backfill, and it made no sense putting base drain in. He reached out to the owner, Kevin Zimmerman, and just stated, we're going to give you some relief there. Then the two of them talked to the contractor, stating that work was going to get pulled out of the project. So that move by the young inspector probably saved that developer between $5,000 to $10,000 in unnecessary work. that would have otherwise happened if he hadn't raised up and spoke up.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brent. Budget workshop. East Cocalico Township Board of Supervisors will hold a budget workshop, public meeting, Monday, October 15th, 2018, 1 p.m. at the Township Building, here at 100 Mill Road. And we need a motion for that, right?
We need a motion to advertise that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions?
What is the purpose of such a meeting?
It's a workshop to formally present the budget.
Yes.
That, why is that being done in the middle of the day? I know that's happened that way in the past. You know, it's a little inconvenient, I would say, for most of the taxpayers in the township to come in the middle of the day as such.
That is being done that way because the staff is attending the meeting and I do not want to pay overtime to my staff.
Part of the other reason there also is there is a considerable amount of work going on right now in the background individually by everyone here in terms of laying out strategic plans and laying out the tactical plans to support those strategic plans for how to address this budget. There's going to be a level of detail there that's quite extensive. It's probably going to involve a lot of conversation, and to Scott's point, that may take a while.
Will that be official township record then?
With it being a workshop meeting, the board will be taking absolutely no action at the meeting. It is really the first time I have the whole board together with the staff present. The board can ask questions of the staff as they present information. And it's also a chance for the staff to take ownership of the budget besides the manager.
So I can assume that it won't be videotaped?
There's no reason why it would be videotaped.
No, it'll be videotaped.
It's just
I'm sorry, Jeff, I don't understand.
But for workshop meetings,
Absolutely.
we're not having any action taken. That would be at a regular meeting.
Yeah, yeah, of course, it's public record.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Recycling ordinance.
Mr. Chair, it's been talked about a couple times. This is to update the ordinance to reflect what the county will now accept. Basically, it's just catch up at this point. We did establish the ordinance in such a way that when the county changes it, it automatically updates the ordinance because it's an appendix email with the county's handout with what the items are that they will recycle. So when they drop down to just recycling cardboard for the county, we're prepared. So I would ask that you advertise this ordinance.
I'll make a motion we advertise the recycling ordinance. Have a second?
Second, same.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Nancy Hess proposal.
This, Mr. Chair, you had this at our last meeting where it was introduced. I explained that we are in need of assistance with preparing updated job descriptions, getting our employee manual up to date and current with both federal and state law, as well as planning a formal employee review program together and goal setting for the township, which would be the first step in doing strategic planning. I would ask that you would authorize this proposal from Nancy Hess. The motion would be approved Nancy Hess proposal date September 7, 2018 for an estimated fee of $13,875 based off of 111 consultant hours of work.
Need a motion?
Yep.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Old business. Traffic safety at